Alright, hello everybody, boys and girls, moms and dads. Welcome to HeroesMart Academy. This is Grade 5 Social Studies. We're going to be doing week number 7 of this curriculum today. Thank you for joining us. It's really a pleasure to walk you through this homeschooling curriculum and be a part of your homeschooling journey. Alright, so week number 7 of Social Studies in 5th grade is going to be talking about the United States in the 20th and the 21st centuries. 20th centuries, talking about what happened in the 1900s and maybe shortly before the 1900s, actually toward the tail end of the 1800s. We're going to talk a little bit about some things that happened over there, and then we are going to be talking about in the 21st century as well. We're going to be talking about the concept of industrialization. Okay, how many people have heard of that before? Well, we're going to be talking about that. Then we are going to be talking about the concept of urbanization. Okay, we're going to be talking about oil and gas. We're going to be talking about certain events like the Great Depression, the World Wars. We are going to be talking about notable events like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement. We're going to be talking about a couple of things right now. So the way we've broken down the study is we've broken it down in such a way that you can easily internalize all these concepts, because there's a lot of historical facts that we are going to be walking through. We broke these down into a couple of bullet points with the expectation that if you see things presented to you as bullet points in short sentences, you will be able to retain them a little bit better. And then when you have a homework to actually convert those short sentences into those short bullet points into sentences and into paragraphs, you will be able to still retain them a little bit better. Actually, I learned it from my old professor at Oral Roberts University. He used to say that it's better for you to study as bullet points, so you can transfer those bullet points into 3x5 cards. If you have those little cards, you can quickly jot them down, and then you are going to internalize those things a little bit better. Well, let's try to get started. So in the 1900s, the United States went through a series of events which have contributed to the forming of the society that we know today. One of those notable events is what we call the industrialization period. So industrialization refers to the time when technology started getting very abundant in the Earth's atmosphere. And he started from Europe, then he came over to the United States, and in the 1700s to about 1800s, things were really pretty much like agrarian. But starting from the tail end of the 1800s into the 1900s, we saw a huge wave of industrialization. People were able to manufacture things at a larger scale. So rather than spending a bunch of time, trying to plant cotton or trying to work on the farm, people started manufacturing machines, and out came the railroad system. So they started building roads and building railroad system, and that spurred a significant growth of the U.S. economy, the cities in the U.S., the expansion of the market economy as a consequence of that. And there were several challenges as a consequence of that. There were significant challenges with regards to labor. There were unsafe working conditions all around the country, and people started protesting that. So there were labor struggles and strikes by men and women, people asking for equality of pay. And by the time we got into the 19th century and the 20th century, legislators started enacting laws to improve working conditions and prevent environmental pollution. So that's just like a quick overview of what industrialization is. Then following industrialization, there came something we call urbanization. And now this refers to the act of taking on the appearance of a city. So prior to industrialization, most people were on farms, they were agrarian. But then when we started building cities or building machines, people started moving over to cities. And if you can reckon with this particular picture right now, can you see this looks like a typical city? It's not the kind of picture you are going to see on a farm, right? On a farm, you're not going to see skyscrapers, you're not going to see apartment complexes. But that's what happened consequent upon industrialization. Then we had urbanization. Millions of workers moved to the United States in pursuit of better job opportunities and education to escape war and poverty. So by the 1900s, 40% of Americans had left rural places to live in cities, and the number kept on growing from that time. The United States per capita is made of immigrants from all over the world, from Europe, from Africa, from Asia, different parts of the world. They came into this country because of industrialization, which led to urbanization. What are certain effects of urbanization? Well, the infrastructure in the United States was not definitely adequate to catch up with the growth of its population. So what's the implication of that? Well, there is traffic jams and slums, people living in slums in the United States, air pollution and noise pollution, health problems, sanitation problems, and lots of people live in apartment complexes in which they used to call tenement housing back in the 1900s. And all these changed the face of the United States and resulted in the growth of healthcare and technology industries. Well, that's what urbanization is. Then what about oil and gas? Well, oil and gas is another leap to the growth of the economy. So in the 19th century, crude oil was discovered, and that further fueled the concept of industrialization. The first significant discovery of oil was the Spindletop discovery in Beaumont, Texas, which was in 1901, and this drove the growth of the industry. Oil was discovered in Pennsylvania in 1859, but not to the magnitude of what we had at the Spindletop. So by the 20th century, crude oil became a major source of fuel, which was used to sustain the growth of the economy and industrialization. So they used crude oil in greasing wagons and tools, and used it in the medicine industry, and well, the rest of it right now is story. Gasoline is a derivative of crude oil. Diesel is a derivative of crude oil. That is pretty significant as well. Then here comes 1929 to 1939. The United States witnessed the worst economic downturn in its history. It was called the Great Depression. And between 1929 and 1939, what happened was there was a significant drought in the nation, not a lot of rain, and because of that, farm produce was significantly impacted. Then on top of that, the stock market literally crashed within that period. And the reason for that is because the stock market had been overbloated prior to that period. People were spending the money they didn't have to buy stocks. Most stocks were literally inflated. That's what they used to call it back in the 1920s. They called it the Roaring 20s. So 1920 and 21 and 22 and up until 1929, people were pouring their monies into the stocks market. Well, and not knowing that low production levels and the droughts was going to be affecting stocks. So here comes 1929, and when everybody came to realize that most of the stocks that they were purchasing were actually inflated, so people started selling their stocks out of fear. And when you start selling stocks out of fear, it's going to create a snowball effect, which can really get out of control. And before they knew it, October 24th of 1929, nervous investors started selling overpriced stocks, and this spiraled down to the subsequent crash of the stocks market. People lost their jobs, they lost their homes, they couldn't find food. It was a really challenging situation. back during the Great Depression. But by 1932, a new President Franklin Roosevelt, was elected, and his administration started passing a series of laws that restored public confidence, and slowly but surely, the Great Depression was ended. All right, but right after that, or while that's still going on, the World War started. It started in Europe. There were two of those. There was World War I and there was World War II. In World War I, over 17 million people were killed, with over 100,000 American troops that were impacted. World War I was from 1914 to 1918, and what led to World War I? So prior to World War I, nations all around the world started forming strategic alliances. In other words, this nation is going to say, well, if something were to happen, I'm going to come and defend your nation. Then another nation is going to form an alliance with another nation, and that's actually significant because the Bible prophesied that. The Bible says that in the book of Revelation chapter 6, that when seal 1 is opened, that there is going to be a conquering to conquer. And fortunately, that's literally what happened all the way from the 1700s up until about 1900s. There was a lot of conquering to conquer. It was an age of imperialism. So people were trying to take sides and partner together so that in the event there is some kind of a war, you're not going to be all by yourself. And that's exactly what happened. Mutual defenses and alliances of European countries spurred significant fighting all over Europe. So Germany declared war on Russia, and France declared war on Germany and Austria, on Hungary, and Germany attacked France through Belgium, and Britain got pulled into the war. Japan got pulled into the war. Italy and the United States joined Allied powers, and you can see all these things over there. But what literally caused it? Well, what caused it was the assassination of somebody called Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Some Serbians had assassinated this fellow. It was really influential. It happened sometime in 1914, and because of that, Hungary Hungarians declared war on Serbia because the person who was killed was from Austria-Hungary. And since Russia had an alliance with Serbia, so you're going to see over here there's an alliance between Russia and Serbia. So Russia had to come and defend Austria-Hungary. But then Germany had an alliance with Austria-Hungary, so it declared war on Russia. And therefore the war started spreading because of those strategic alliances. Did you see the Bible was right about that? The war went on from 1914 to 1918 between the what they call the Allied powers and the German side. Fortunately, unfortunately, the German side lost the war. So they forced Germany to surrender, and they forced them to sign an armistice. They signed an armistice, which is a little contract that you're not going to cause problems anymore. So they signed that armistice, and the world was relatively peaceful from 1918 or 1919 to about 1939. And in 1939, another world war started, with Germany being the pivotal, the center of it. So World War I destabilized Europe, with Germany being on the losing side of World War I. The Allied powers, led by Britain, forced them to sign an armistice, which is called the Versailles Treaty, which was not favorable to Germany. But Germany's Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party, formed strategic alliances with Italy and Japan to support his dream to dominate the world back during that time. So he did that because, he was kind of disgruntled, and, they made Germany pay a lot of reparation costs because of a World War I incident. He wasn't really happy with that. So here comes 1939 again. Germany says we're going to dominate everybody. So they invaded Poland in 1939, and this drove Great Britain and France to declare war on Germany, again because of those strategic alliances. And by 1941 rather, 360 Japanese aircrafts attacked a major U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, killing over 2,000 American troops. And because of that, America jumped into the war and started fighting Japan. And Germany and the Axis powers declared war on the United States because of that. The United States and the Allied powers teamed up and defeated Germany and the Axis powers. And between 45 to 60 million people were killed in World War II. Really, really devastating situation all around the world, but it's worth reminiscing. It's worth talking about. So World War I and World War II. And then there are significant events in the 20th century, like the Civil Rights Movement, which was championed by Dr. Martin Luther King. That's his picture over there. He was a resolute man, intellectual, African American person who was born January 15th, 1929. He was a Baptist minister, and he was the most visible leader of the civil rights movement of the 1960s. He gave a famous speech about "I have a dream," and he sought equality and human rights for African Americans. Unfortunately, he was assassinated in 1968, but thankfully his cause was not assassinated with him. And you're going to read a little historical report about Dr. Martin Luther King over here. Please take your time to be apprised of those events. Alright, so that's what I've got for you today. So here's a couple of things you can do to memorize and to internalize these historical facts. Well, based on what you learned today, create a historical report on the world wars. Well, you're going to be talking about the causes of the war, countries that were involved, the United States involvement, and the timing of the wars. So how do you do that? Well, you're going to start with this bullet points over there, causes of the war. Well, you're going to go over there. Well, the war was caused by mutual defense and alliances of European countries. Well, copy this bullet point over there. Copy imperialism, copy militarism, copy nationalism, copy all those points. Put them under your bullet point over there, and then start turning those bullet points into sentences, and sentences into paragraphs, and paragraphs into your article. That way, when you write it down yourself, you're going to see all the stories. All these stories are going to stick to your mind just like that. Alright, so that's a homework that you can do, and you can have fun with it. Moms and dad, please go ahead and help your child to be able to do this, and I'm sure that they are going to enjoy it. Alright, so that's what I got for you today, boys and girls. Week number 7, grade 5 social studies. Until next time, remember, God cares about you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
I'll be your hero's buddy, and as you study with HeroesMart